Hello, in today's shorter video I just want to talk about something that I was asked about recently, which is how do I prepare against different opponents and how do I do my preparation for teams. Generally, I like to divide this into 4 key points and these are as following. To demonstrate the points that I will be talking about in this video, I'm just going to be using a tool called Noesis. And this is something that I generally use a lot to prepare myself because it gives you a 2D perspective and allows you to quickly skim through demos and also use some specific functions like we can see here with seeing positions where you can follow a specific player and see where they tend to play. Seeing specific grenades that a team throws and at what timings they do it. This is something that I generally like to use just to prepare because I find it easier and faster than doing it through the in-game demo viewing. So, using the Astralis versus Fnatic demo on Inferno, I will be showcasing the points that I will be talking about. So the first point is identifying your opponents. This is with positions and their general playstyle. So for example, we can see on the T side of Inferno where Crims generally likes to play. Crims is their apps lurk, so we can see the pathings that he likes to take and where he generally likes to end up, which is, not surprisingly, apps. With one specific player, this is not always that useful, but having the foresight of knowing which players is playing which position is something that is very useful for starting out the game. And also the general playstyle that the team has, be it on CT or T side, which defaults they like to play, approximately where do they play, how many, is something that's very useful to know before you go into the game. The second point is default and tendencies. So this is how do they like to approach certain parts of the map, generally speaking. For example, if we switch over to strategy board here, another tool in Noesis, we can look at the example of Ancient. How do they approach the map in general? This can be different from team to team, and that's why I find it very useful to have this as something that you prepare. Some teams like to play a more mid-heavy default where they, for example, start this type of start, with just 2 guys towards the B door playing more passive. And some people like to play more B heavy, for example, where they will play something more like these positions for starting of the round. This doesn't just have to be starting positions either, it can also be, for example, which tempo they take certain map control, if they like to take areas fast or slower, for example, on Ancient example. Some teams like to try to take mid with the first mid set of util, with the first window smoke, maybe a smoke in this area here, and then trying to get out mid early if they start something like this, where they go out on what we call the first tempo, which is the first possible timing really that they will realistically be able to get out here. Or if they're a team that likes to take it more later, where they maybe play a more passive start and retake mid with a second window smoke, and maybe don't even use this smoke early in the round to begin with to save utility. The third point that I like to look at is when do they alter from these default tendencies that we found in the previous points. So for example, if we look at Ancient, if the Ts tend to throw a cave smoke in the beginning of the round, an important thing that I like to identify is when do they alter from using this and when do they not use it? And which possible things are going to be able to happen when they don't use this. This could be that they have a specific fast cave take where they don't do it. This can be an A rush, this can be a mid pop, a B rush, a B pop, whatever. And it's important to identify which of these alternatives that are likely to happen when this smoke doesn't come in, which you can figure out quite early in the round by your cave player saying they're not smoking cave. And then you can build on this by, for example, your cave player here not hearing anyone stepping, then it's maybe likely it's an A rush or an A pop or a mid pop. If they're not hearing steps here, it's probably not going to be a fast cave take. And the fourth and most important point is, once you have these findings, preparing and countering against this. So this is something that you can utilize all 3 of the previous points for. For example, calling out which player is dead when you're entering a site. If you kill the B player on Ancient, for example, on their CT site. If the B player is found on the A site, this might be a good tell that it's an A stack or an A lean or some specific setup there, which you can know beforehand if you know which players are playing which positions. This can also be being ready for the general play style. For example, if they are a team that like to take mid fast on the first tempo, you can prepare this by knowing, okay, which starts can we have as CTs in middle that can counter an early mid take or counter them trying to get mid early. This can be starting 3 mid. This can be starting a more passive setup where you maybe have 1 player window ready to break the smoke and 1 guy donuts, or punishing this by pushing B ramp when you hear them taking mid. This can be many different alternatives that you can decide yourself depending on how you like to play the map and what you find in that specific demo. the thing that's most noticeable is countering specific tells. So as I said, if they usually throw the cave smoke as teas, but you see that they don't do this, and you know that, okay, this likely means, based on the demos that you've watched, that it could be an A rush, this could be a B pop or a mid pop, for example. And then if you don't hear anything towards the mid area early, showing that they'll take mid early, then you might want to reinforce the B sides. Be ready for this, maybe block ramp with a smoke grenade, having a third player rotate in so you're ready for this B push. So this is quite a short summary of how I like to prepare against teams, trying to find these different 4 points that I highlighted and thinking about them. This is something that comes from experience. I have prepared against teams for many years, so it becomes sort of normal for me and a sort of standard procedure. And in the beginning, it might feel more that you have to manually find these things and think about them, but eventually it will become more natural to just see the game and understand what are they doing and what can we do against that. I like to not just base this on one demo, because that can rarely give you enough nuance to understand fully how they like to play a map. If you can only see maybe one demo, for example, if you're playing an open qualifier and you get to know the map and the opponents right before the start, just opening one demo and seeing their positions so you can find the first point of the positions they play, maybe the general play style, is still information that could be very essential in a match, but you might not have time simply put to find the other points that I speak about. And some specific things to think about when you're preparing is that avoiding making your prep too specific to the point where you alter your playstyle too heavily. You shouldn't change the way that you play fully based on how the opponents like to approach a map. You should rather find prep as a tool that you can use to help you out in the games, maybe give you an extra second or a couple seconds of reading or understanding that this is what's likely to happen. This is something that you also actively have to maybe think about in the game, or it can be more automated depending on how used to it you are. But you need to trust your own team, how you like to play the map, how you like to play the game, and not fully relying on what you think the opponents will be doing before even seeing it. And something that's very important is always confirming if the findings from the prep is actually accurate. This is noticeable in just a few buy rounds if they actually play the way that you expect them to play. And then you can confirm this by saying that they are likely doing this thing, they're likely to approach the map this way. But don't just go into it 100% gambling that they will be playing the exact same ways, because teams change the way they play. Teams aren't always consistent in the way they play, and they might also have prep. So that's a level that you need to think about as well. If they find weakness in the way that you play, they might specifically counter that type of playstyle in that match. While I did say that I don't generally like to prepare on too specific things, because it can be very easy that alters how your players think about the match, and you don't want to change your own playstyle all too heavily. There are some specific plays that you could highlight by prep to create awareness for your players. And this can be things that are oftentimes in the early round, which is, for example, if they do a specific nade stack that they like to do once or twice a game. This can be if the T's on Ancient, for example, like to early nade stack close A main to get the opera off the angle, trying to get a pick early in the round. Or if they tend to bounce 2 or 3 AGs mid here, for example, is also something that you can highlight just to create awareness for your players that these positions might be risky in their early rounds, and to avoid the unnecessary damage that you might take through eating these grenades. That's about all I had to say in this short video about how I like to prep. I don't want to go into too specific details because obviously that's a bit personal, but this is the general way that I like to think about it and how I like to approach prep. I just want to give a huge shout out, by the way, to Steelseries for sending me out this microphone and headphones that I will be using for the videos in the future. This will hopefully give better audio quality and generally a better, more pleasant viewing experience for you guys watching. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.